Hi, this is Mrs. Eggerding, and you are watching Unit 1, Video 3 for your Algebra 2 class. We're going to review your order of operations today, but specifically we want to introduce some keystrokes on your graphing calculator so you can begin to get comfortable with it. When we introduce keystrokes and other commands on your calculator on one of the videos, Miss Moran and I do expect that you will be trying to follow along with your own graphing calculator at home, and that you will be working to remember those commands because we will expect you to be familiar with them in class when we need them or any time throughout the year. But before we get to that, we want to know which of these following are equivalent, if any of them are. An equivalent would mean after I simplify each one, do any of them come up to be the same answer? So go ahead, think about it. There are 4 of them. 2 of them could be equivalent, 3 of them, none of them. Which ones do you think are equivalent? And go ahead and pause the video if you need to think about it a little bit more. Okay. On this one, the first 2 are equivalent. They both have values of negative 36. The bottom 2, on the other hand, have values of positive 36. And I wrote the positive there just for emphasis. We wanted to do this question first because as you enter things on the calculator, it's really easy to type in -6 and simply press the squared button. And the calculator will tell you that answer is negative 36. Whereas if you put this in parentheses first and then square it, you end up with a positive 36. So what's going on here? Why do those parentheses make such a difference? And the answer is the order of operations. When you work with order of operations, you learn that parentheses are the first thing that gets done. And that's exactly what the calculator is reading here. It's reading, okay, I'm taking my -6 and I'm going to look at that part first. Second thing the calculator looks for are exponents. So it's taking this -6 and raising it to the second power. Third thing that happens is the multiplication and division. So that's what's going on this top one. It sees the 6, but it doesn't see it as a negative. It sees the exponent first because that comes first in order of operations. Then it's multiplying it by this negative. So it's doing 6 squared, multiplying it by a negative, and that's where they come out to be with the negative 36. Alright, so back to your basic order of operations. Parentheses, brackets, any grouping symbols. An additional grouping symbol you might see is a fraction bar. Okay. A fraction bar just means you have stuff on the top and stuff on the bottom, and you're going to do the stuff on the top first and the stuff on the bottom second. As we enter that in a graphing calculator, these fraction bars are going to end up being replaced by parentheses. Exponents we just talked about. Do watch your parentheses on those exponents. Multiplication and division, you're going to do them in order from left to right. So if you have something like 12 divided by 2 times 3, okay, the division, because it comes first, gets done first. 12 divided by 2 is 6 times 3 gives you an answer of 18. Same thing with addition and subtraction. You do it as it shows up left to right. So a problem like 2 plus 3 minus 4 plus 5. Start at the left. You do 2 plus 3 first. That's 5. 5 minus 4 comes second. That's 1. And 1 plus 5 gets you the final answer of 6. All things you've seen before. Let's go ahead and talk about what happens when you start combining all these together. Over on the left here, there are some notes that you can write down or maybe add to it if you need to about some of the things we're going to talk about. There's a caret button. It looks like an arrow pointing up to raise numbers to a power, so getting your exponents. We are going to change some expressions to fractions, and I'll show you where that button is. And then there's some things you can do about what happens if you make a mistake. So let's go ahead and take these one at a time. I have a tendency here to clear this screen out, so the clear button is below the arrows, and that gets rid of the work that you've just done. So the first one, we're just going to type it in as is, 6 divided by 3. And one thing I want to point out with these here is the calculator sees a division symbol and it writes it with the slash, almost as if it's making a fraction. Okay, 6 divided by 3. Now come over here and do plus 2. Caret button is above the division sign, so raise it to the third power. Now I have the updated operating system on my 84, so I'm getting this pretty version of my exponent. If you happen to have an older operating system, the calculator will simply just print the caret and the 3. It's still doing the same thing. The new operating system, though, this little arrow means, okay, get down from this exponent before you type anything. Hit the arrow out of it to get out of my exponent, and then multiply it by 5. Press enter, and it will give you the answer. Second problem, same thing, introducing parentheses. I have parentheses above the 8 and the 9, so I'm going to use those to do the 8 plus 6 first. Division sign, 7 times 3 minus 6. Press enter, it gives me an answer of 0. So the calculator knows to follow order of operations as long as you type in what you intended to. Alright, third one. Now we get to play with some fractions. We have some square brackets in here also. There is no ABC button like there might be on your scientific calculator. To type in a fraction, you're simply going to use the division key. Open my parentheses. I'm going to type in negative 2 divided by 9. That's how I'm going to get my fraction. Minus 1 over 4. Close my parentheses. Minus. Now I know on the paper here it says use a square bracket. Yeah, there are some square brackets on your calculator. We're not going to use them. We're just going to end up making it another set of parentheses. So some of your expressions end up being kind of long because you're doing parentheses inside of parentheses, and that's okay. Just keep track of how many you've put in and how many you need to take out on the end. So here's my problem. This arrow over on the left here just means I have more typed in. Press enter, and again there's the arrow saying, hey, there's more. Alright, it gives me a decimal. Rule in this class: if the problem gives you a fraction, you must give us an answer as a fraction. We don't want the decimal. So the math key here is over on the left, below the alpha button. Press the math key. Your first option is arrow frac, and this arrow means change. So it's going to change to a fraction. So this means take my answer. The arrow means change it to a fraction. And I get the negative 25 over 72. Again, my operating system has pretty print on here, so it actually looks like the fraction. If you have an older operating system, you're going to see the slash in between them. A couple things. Let's go back up to this. If you make a mistake, what can you do? If I do second and enter, it repeats the last thing I just did. And if I do it again, it actually goes back a second time to what I just typed in. You don't need to hit enter before you change it to a fraction. I can take the expression as already typed in, and before I press enter say, okay calculator, I've typed in all this math stuff you have to do, but I want to make sure you change my answer to a fraction, and it will go ahead and do it then. So either place you can stick that arrow frac on there. Just make sure if we give you a fraction, you give us a fraction back. Okay, I'm going to clear this out. Do the last one on this page. Here's what I was talking about with the fraction bar making some grouping symbols. I have a numerator and a denominator. So I need to make sure I tell the calculator, hey, do all the stuff in the numerator first. Then I'm going to do all the stuff in the denominator. So you're actually going to be adding parentheses to this expression. All right, start your numerator. So I open the parentheses, I start my numerator. I have a negative. Then I'm going to take the number -3 in parentheses, and I'm going to raise it to the third power. Get me out of my exponent, and I'm going to add -5. I close my parentheses to tell the calculator I'm done with my numerator. Division sign. I'm starting my denominator. Parentheses. There's the denominator start. 2 times -8 minus 5 times 3. I didn't use the parentheses like they were written there, okay, because those parentheses were just identifying multiplication, so I chose to use the multiplication symbols. I don't know if I'm going to get a fraction or not, so I'm going to tell the calculator, you know what, just in case this doesn't come out nice, I want you to give me my answer as a fraction. And there it is, it's the -22/31. Okay. If you got the decimal version because you press enter right away, just go ahead and take your answer, change it to a fraction. Last thing to talk about here is evaluating expressions where they give you values of a variable. Your job then is to plug in those variables in the right spot. So this one here, we start with the -4, then it says to take x squared. Up here they're telling me x is -2. Here's what we were talking about with those negative numbers being raised to a power. I want to make sure I take the -2 and square it. The parentheses are going to tell the calculator, take the -2 and square it, not just the 2. -7 times y is 5, plus 4, and they say z is -3. So I wrote this on paper with the parentheses for the multiplication. I'm going to come on over here, and I have -4. Gotta have those parentheses when I want to square. Oops, helps if I write the 2. Just clear. -4. Start the parentheses on the -2. There is a squared button over here diagonally from the 7, and it'll automatically put that exponent of 2 in there for you, so you don't have to use the caret. -7 times 5 plus 4 times -3. Enter, and there's -63 for your answer. Last one, same thing. We're going to substitute things in, but again, I have a numerator that's going to get parentheses. I have a denominator that's going to get parentheses. So what does it look like over here? Start my numerator. I have 2 parentheses. Instead of x, I'm going to write -2 minus 5, close parentheses, squared, plus 4 times, instead of y, I write 5. That's the end of my numerator. Divided by, start my parentheses for my denominator, -3 plus 4. Close the parentheses. It's a fraction, so I might get a fraction. Tell the calculator, hey, give me my answer as a fraction. And it didn't need to. The answer came out nice, 118. So, gave you a lot of calculator skills. Use this assignment to practice them. Practice using your calculator on these. Page 11, 15 to 23 all. 27, 28, 31, 33, and 35. We'll see you later. Bye.